We're wrapping up the week at the Coastal Regional Outreach Center for the South Carolina School for the Deaf and the Blind, and we're learning about some vital equipment just like this. Learn all about it coming up next on this morning's Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're on 4th Avenue in Conway at the Coastal Regional Outreach Center for the South Carolina School for the Deaf and Blind. We're focused on the South Carolina Telecommunications Program Distribution Program, and we're visiting with Taffy Hardin, its director. Good morning, Taffy.
Good morning. How are you?
Thanks so much for coming in this morning.
Thank you for having us.
It's a great opportunity to highlight the program, so much of what's happening statewide, to make sure that viewers and others understand if they're having trouble using a standard phone, this is a real opportunity to get in touch with the program.
Exactly. Our program offers equipment to people who have difficulty using the standard telephone. This program is funded through surcharge on the state residential and business telephone lines.
Mm-hmm. How long has the program been in place, Taffy?
Actually, the program was established in 1998 through the Public Service Commission, and the South Carolina School for the Deaf and Blind began administering the program in February of '03.
Okay.
So it's actually been in existence since 1998.
Okay, great. Real quick about yourself, Taffy. Are you originally from the area?
I am. I'm actually from Hartsville, South Carolina, but I've been in Columbia all my life.
Is that right?
Right.
You were born in Hartsville.
I was born
in our viewing area. That's great. What carried you to Columbia?
Well, my parents actually were from the Bishopville area, and then they moved to Columbia at early, raising the children and putting us in school.
Now, is Taffy a family name?
No, actually it's not. It's just a name that my grandmother liked and asked her daughter to name her daughter Taffy.
Is that right? Yeah.
Right.
She said, honey, if you have a girl, you need to name her Taffy. Well, I wonder if she'd had a son.
Well, I'm not sure.
That's right. I wonder what that would have been. Yeah. Well, that's exciting, and that's a name I hadn't heard that in a while. So that was great to hear that this morning, knowing that we'd get you in. Of course, to think about a program that really kicked off full-fledged in February of 2003, even though it had been around or in a planning stage before then, and you came on board as the director when?
Well, actually, I'll give you a little bit of history. I worked for the South Carolina Public Service Commission. Actually, I was with the commission for 25 years, and I actually oversaw this program along with a lot of relay programs, and transferred over to the School for the Deaf and Blind in December, and actually oversaw the budgets, and also I was already very familiar with the program itself. Mm-hmm. So it was a great opportunity for me to come over and join the School for the Deaf and Blind. It was a perfect fit.
Taffy, is the program pretty well recognized statewide now? Are y'all still getting the word out, or is it?
We work very hard to get the word out. We've had a lot of help with the telecommunications companies helping us with the bill insert information. We have an outreach coordinator, Miss Ann Bader, who goes out across the state and exhibits, displays, presentations, and we invite anybody to give us a call, and we'll be happy to arrange to come out and show them the program and the devices that we offer.
Great. And there's a multitude of devices.
Oh yes, we have lots of different devices for the TTY, which is this device here. It's a text typewriter for the deaf, and we have an XL40 amplified phone that amplifies your voice. We have the larynx for the speech impaired. We have the Dynamo for the speech impaired also, and we offer numerous devices, and that catalog is in our application that they can actually choose the piece of device that's best for them.
Right. Now, when you talk about the TTY, that's been very popular. That's been around for quite a while, hasn't it?
It actually has. The TTY has been around for quite some time. Some people refer to it as a TDD,
right?
Telecommunications deaf device, but then the terminology used today is more TTY,
right?
Text typewriter.
For instance, when you're looking up the numbers for the South Carolina School for the Deaf and Blind, even for each of the outreach centers, you'll see a phone number, and then it'll have the word phone/TTY.
Exactly.
So the same phone could be. Can you share with viewers how the TTY would work, or exactly when it would come into play.
Right. The deaf person types on the TTY to the consumer assistant, and then the consumer assistant voices to the person and then types back to the caller, the deaf caller. So the consumer assistant is the typist between the deaf person and the hearing person, and then they speak to the hearing person. So it's just a translation call, with the CA being like the invisible person in between.
Mm-hmm. Now, if there is a deaf person on the other end,
they would talk TTY to TTY.
They would go back and forth, which would be so they would dial the number with the TTY, and then would they set the receiver down on here? Is that what that's?
Right, they would set the receiver down in order to answer the telephone. That's correct. And then they would type back and forth to each other with two TTY machines being accessed.
Right.
If you were dialing through the relay center, you would dial 711 and dial through that way, and the operator would assist you with the other caller, such as myself without a TTY.
Right. So now the operators then have to be proficient in the use of the TTY.
Right. The relay call center operators have to be a certain speed in order to type back to the customers. There are strict guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
And that call center is here in Columbia, South Carolina, in West Columbia.
Is that right? Now, in the funding that, of course, you talked about the 16-cent surcharge, I believe, is the funding that's done in that way help to fund that operator as well?
Exactly. There's lots of programs that come out of the Relay Fund, and our program, the South Carolina Telecommunications Equipment Distribution Program, is one of approximately 4 or 5 programs, and there is, right now it's set at 16 cents, and it's on all your residential and business access lines.
Is that right?
Right.
Wow. Well, that could grow to be a pretty big number, but at the same time, obviously with the critical nature of all this equipment and the desire for you all to get it out to as many people, I'm sure there's a heck of a lot of folks who may not even know about the program.
There are still a lot of people who don't know about the program. We're working very hard to get the word out, and we continue to do that every day. And, word of mouth, like I said earlier, the presentations, the phone companies with the inserts. Every day we're trying to strategic outreach plan to get the word out more and more.
Taffy, if a viewer wanted to learn more about the program, what's the best way for them to find out? Is there a website they could visit, or is there a phone number if it's...
Yes, you can go to the School for the Deaf and Blind's website under the outreach portion.
Okay.
And it's scsdb.k12.sc.us.
Okay.
And they can click on that link, and they can actually access the application and a web sheet to our program also.
Okay.
Contact numbers.
Great. For viewers who may not have internet access, could they just call their local outreach center?
You could actually call the outreach center. I'm sure could get them to us if they needed to, or they could just dial the 1-800 number for the program, which would be the local number would be 896-8337 in Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay.
And then we have 2 toll-free numbers that they can also call, which would be 1-877-889-8337, and that's a TTY line.
Okay.
And they could dial 1-877-225-8337, and that's a voice line.
Right. Now, as you said, of course, they can call the local, whether it's the outreach center in the PD or this one here, the 843-248-8100.
Right, any of them, that's correct.
Okay. Well, that's so critical. It's invaluable. And I know obviously you're not using these numbers all the time, so it's so important that folks are able to learn more about the program because of the both its.
Each of the centers, except Florence, which will have a display there very soon, has a display of our program with the brochures and the applications and the different pieces of equipment that we offer. And so all the centers across the state would have that, and the administrative assistants and the directors would be happy to assist them and show them what we offer and how to get in touch with us.
So the program is administered in each of these in each of the centers throughout the state, or do folks have to come through Columbia for it?
Actually, they don't actually have to come through. They have to come through Columbia. That's where the equipment is actually distributed, and we are the main office where they would get it from. But of course, all the outreach offices under the South Carolina School for the Deaf and Blind work with us, and will get them to us. The program is administered by the School for the Deaf and Blind, and actually it's under the oversight of the Office of Regulatory Staff, which is who handles that relay fund where the money is dispersed.
What are the qualifications someone must have to receive some of the benefits of the program?
Okay, you need to be a South Carolina resident.
Uh-huh.
You must have phone service in your home, landline phone service in your home. You must have a certified disability that causes you a problem using a standard telephone.
Right.
And you need to be deaf, hard of hearing, blind, low vision with hearing loss, speech impaired, or deaf-blind.
Okay.
In order to qualify. And your professional certifiers on the back of your application can certify that impairment, and then you just send that application on to our agency and we'll get it filled out and get the equipment out to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so the costs associated with it are really slim to none.
Actually, the devices are free. It's a loaner program. And we ask that if you move out of state that you return the equipment.
Okay.
Or if you, in the event of death, that one of the family members call us and us take care of getting that piece of equipment sent back to us.
Okay. So the user can use the equipment as long as they're living?
As long as it's needed.
Okay.
And if the equipment were to break, then if they would call us and give us an idea of what's wrong with the equipment, and of course we can determine at that point whether it needs to be returned back to us if under warranty, or it needs to be sent off for repairs. It all depends on the cost of the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Or in some cases we will ask them to dispose of it, and in all cases they will get a replacement.
Right, good. And of course oftentimes based off of the impairment there, sometimes the impairment's getting worse over time, and so they may need to get from one piece of equipment to another. I think you talked about is it XL40?
Exactly, it's an amplified phone, the XL40, and anytime they start having difficulty with the device that has been, given to them, they're welcome to give us a call and see if there's something newer out on the market,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll be happy to trade that out for them.
Right. Now this TTY has been around, we said, a pretty long time.
Yeah, TTY, I honestly, it's been around a very long time.
Yeah.
So as far as the year when they first came out,
Right.
I actually don't know, but they have been around a long time.
But of course, you talked about some of the training needed of the folks in the central office, the one there in West Columbia. I guess there's a heck of a lot of those persons there statewide.
Yeah, I believe there's actually at one time when I was at the Public Service Commission and we were very involved in setting up this center, there was 100 positions at that center, so I would think about at least 80 of those were consumer assistants.
And these are available 24/7.
Exactly.
And surely for, you think about some of the need, some of the instances, if there's an emergency, for instance, that someone can utilize the TTY, they need to use the 711 prior, so that person on the other end would know.
Exactly. That's correct. 711 is used just like 911 would be used, but not in the same situation as 911, but 711 will get the deaf person to where they need to go.
Okay. And how does someone, of course, the only way they can know of what piece of equipment they need to apply for is by reviewing the list of the equipment, or what are some of the ways that someone can find out what kind of equipment they need?
Most of the time it happens when they go see their speech language pathologist or their audiologist. Most of the professionals are familiar with our program, and that's another huge piece of our outreach, is getting out to the different certifiers and making them aware of our program. They will go over the application with their client and really pick out which piece of equipment they think would be best for that particular client, and then sign off on the back of the application with their certifier number, and then we go from there.
Right. We got about 10 minutes, Taffy, and of course we don't have other pieces of equipment here. We try to think through some of those critical pieces. If a viewer, let's just talk about some examples. Maybe we could think of some examples of if a viewer has, if they're not deaf but they're very hard of hearing, what would be a practical thing?
Well, the XL40, like we talked about earlier, the amplified phone is more of the hard of hearing, and we actually distribute that piece of equipment more so than any of the others. We actually distributed approximately 4,000 pieces of equipment over the last 10 months. So we put out a lot of equipment, and really about 85% of that would have been or had been the XL40. So the XL40 is the most popular device. But as far as the other pieces of equipment, the TTYs are very popular also. We put out quite a few of those in a month's time also. We have installer trainers when the equipment goes out to the people, on the application it asks if they would like an install, and we line it up where we have 5 installer trainers that work across the region.
Right.
They go to the person's home, they set up what's convenient for them.
Right.
And they'll install the piece of equipment for them. Some of the amplified phones are only a matter of plugging into the outlet, but we're there if they need us. And we're always, willing to help get somebody out there and show them how the devices work, the different functions of the devices, abbreviated dialing, just any special feature on the phone. And of course, the Dynavox, being one of the most complicated devices, is programmed for them. And the installer trainer goes and puts the main phone numbers that they would like, a list of about 10 numbers into the phone and into the unit.
Right.
And so the installer trainers are a big piece of our program also.
How critical, A, to be able to get that person out there, B, to know it's no cost to them, because these are loaner programs. And particularly for folks, I think I saw on some of the models, there were one where it had 8 or 9 pictures, for instance.
Right, it's like a photo phone.
Right.
It shows the different pictures of keys, showing the different pictures for your keystrokes.
Of family members or of emergency or otherwise, to make sure folks could really expedite it. Of course, there's a heck of a lot of different ones as I reviewed that program book. And of course, if folks visited the office here, the outreach center, whether it's the Coastal Regional Outreach Center here, or the one in Florence, or of course you've got one in Charleston, one in I guess one in Columbia there.
Right, exactly. There's 6 total centers, and Mr. Falcone will be on after me, and he'll be talking a lot about the different centers, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There are 6 across the state.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was with us yesterday, and he was wonderful. And of course, one of the things that we talk about when we think about those 6 is that aspect of knowing that folks can always come in and pick up these program books that have a summary of a heck of a lot of the equipment that's available, whether it's that opportunity to get, as you say, an amplified phone, or when we think about amplifier, I mean, what kind of amplification does it provide? Is it a real substantial?
The XL40 is an amplified phone, 40 decimals.
Right.
And they do actually have an XL50 now that we're looking into. We haven't actually added that to the program yet. But so far, the XL40 seems to do what it needs to do for the hearing, the hard of hearing.
And so this is like when we think about our speakerphone, for instance, is it much like a speakerphone?
Right, when you turn that volume up, they're hearing that amplification louder and louder in their ear, and it works very well with the hearing aids also.
Think about my dad who has 2 hearing aids, and of course he doesn't like using the handhelds anymore. He just can't get anything, so he's always using the speakerphone. Of course, in a house, if he stays up late, mom's going to bed early, I mean, it can really be something that can kind of help keep the house up. I wonder if there are avenues, and surely the installers probably take that into account to try to position the phone in the best location if there are multiple people in the house.
Oh, yes, they do. And of course, we have alerting devices too, is something that we didn't touch on too much. In the alerting devices, we have a 2-way pager where 2 deaf people, or if you're deaf, you'll be able to do a text type message through pagers. And then we have the weather alert radio. Of course, here in the Horry County, Conway area, that's very important. And another phone that we offer is the voice carryover phone. It's a uniphone, and that's for the instead of listening to the caller, listening to the caller's speech, then the person is for a person who can listen to the caller but can't speak.
Right.
So that's the voice carryover phone.
If they can listen, but they cannot speak. Right. Sure. Well, how does a deaf person know when the phone rings?
It'll the Alert Master, the AM6000 is another alerting device, and it flashes. It has a light that will flash and tell you that the phone's ringing, and it also has an attachment where you'll have the doorbell, and the light will flash that someone's at the door, and an alarm clock also.
Are you talking about like a lamp in the house? Or
a lamp's attached to that will flash with if the phone's ringing, if someone's at the door. We also have a bed shaker that will shake the bed if someone's at the door.
That's a great idea.
It's just a multi-unit
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting. I mean, you think about so many aspects that would be needed, or depending on where you are in the house.
Right. We just take it for granted. There's a lot of things that all this equipment will do, and it's just a wonderful program.
Sure, and of course, when you think about if a lamp flashes at one speed, it may be a doorbell, or it may be a phone, or certain lamps.
Exactly.
But you've got to be sensitive to the fact that if you're in the kitchen, you've got to have lights that serve that role. If you're in the bedroom or in the bathroom or anywhere, you've got to make sure that, so I guess there's probably multiple lights going off throughout the house when the phone's ringing at a certain speed, and multiple lights that are going off around the house, so that depending on what room you're in.
Right, and you have to get different frequencies with some of our equipment, and installer trainers are trained to know how to get, make sure you don't have disruption of too much confusion going on in the household with that type of stuff, with frequencies.
We think about those practical sides of your life if you're not hearing impaired or if you're not deaf, that folks may have to go through. And of course, Scott was with us yesterday talking about growing up in a home where both his parents were deaf, or hearing impaired, dramatically hearing impaired, and of course the experiences for him of seeing that and learning about that. It was fascinating hearing him talk about that.
I know, it is fascinating. It is very. Scott's got a really good story to tell, no doubt.
Absolutely. Now, are you still out on the, quote, on the streets a good bit? Are you out? I think I saw for 20 plus years you were involved with relay administrators statewide. I mean,
right. It really is just it was a good opportunity for me, but I've actually worked with the relay and the deaf community and the administration of the relay fund for about the past 6 years.
Okay.
I've been in a lot of different areas before that, and of course I was a member of the National Association of State Relay Administrators when I was at the Public Service Commission, and then I'm now still a member of the Telecommunications Equipment Distribution Program Association, and then our agency, the TEDP program, being director, I chair the TEDP Advisory Committee, and on that committee serves someone from all of our disability groups, and of course our contract vendor, CNI Systems at this point is our equipment vendor, and so that committee has a lot of input and advises us on things that are going on in the communities.
That is critical, and of course for folks who are not hearing impaired or are not deaf, to try and understand the needs or the potential needs, it requires you to be in a constant learning mode.
Right, and this program is also for the hearing, because it helps the hearing people communicate back with the deaf people, and vice versa. So all the way around, it's a good program.
That's a very good point, Taffy. I think I saw, did I see correctly, you've been in state government for more than 25 years.
Right, I started out
not to date you there, but that's
a long time.
What do you think's been the encouragement for you to remain in state government?
Well, I don't know. I just kind of I got at the commission, and I just stayed, and I grew there, and I just stayed on, and then, like I said, the school's opportunity, the School for the Deaf and Blind opportunity came along for me, so it was like it was just all fell into place, what needed to happen.
Probably that first experience for you working with the state to relay advisors or helping out us, I think you said 6 years ago, to see some of the advancements. Can you think back over the last 6 years of some of the things you all have learned over the 6 years that you continue to implement today?
Oh yeah, actually one of the biggest things and one of the best things that ever happened was the equipment distribution program coming under the School for the Deaf and Blind. It's just a perfect fit. And the School for the Deaf and Blind, these are the clients that they serve.
Right.
So you just couldn't get a better fit than that, and for me to be able to come over and be a part of that family has just been a wonderful experience for me, and I look forward to being there for a long time.
Oh yeah, Linda Smith was with us early in the week sharing about the early intervention program.
Oh yeah.
And to know the needs, of course, for herself, having started early on working with adults, then to recognize a real critical need is to get to children early on, and to know that the impact of the distribution program that you're in, that if you can somehow not only reach out to parents, but reach out to these children at an early age so they can work hard to get the message out for you.
That's correct.
You probably
we
begin
all work closely together.
That's right. You probably begin to interact much of this equipment with children as well.
Oh, definitely, yes. And, the age of the equipment is 18 years, or you need a legal guardian. And also the equipment, we look at making sure that the person is, able to use the equipment, and we want to make sure that they're old enough that they'd be able to use whatever piece of equipment that's distributed to them.
Right.
So it's a case-by-case type thing. But if 18 and younger, or under 18 years of age, we ask for a guardian to sign the application.
Right. And that installer, of course, would know that before they showed up. I mean, they'd know if the person was 18, but they're also in a mode where they're not only training adults how to use this equipment, but oftentimes training children.
And the family members, how to communicate with the child, also with the device, that type of thing.
Boy, Taffy, thanks so much for being with us this morning and traveling down right before Memorial Weekend kicks off.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed it.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Taffy Hardin coming up next. Are you eligible for telecommunications equipment? If you don't know, you got to call 843-248-8100. Do you know how to apply for telecommunications equipment? If you don't know, give them a call at 843-248-8100. The South Carolina Telecommunications Equipment Distribution Program is for real. If you could see this program book, you'd see the multitude of different pieces of equipment available for you depending on your hearing impairment. If you don't have one, you may have a relative or a friend who does. Call them at 843-248-8100 to learn more.